the other years, I'm Sharon Davis, a swimmer, so Olympic medalist, and just saying to my 12 times at the Olympics now, so Tokyo for me was my 12th Olympic Games, where I've either swum or worked for the BBC, and they were definitely different than every other one I've been to, so yeah. And you are.
I'm Mick, Cobra, and I felt such a great athlete until Amazon, Sharon Davis, come along. She was in the first Olympics at 13. I was still picking my nose and still wet myself on the other night. The Olympics at 13. And yeah, I did that show for about 8 years. Was it 8 years? I mean, because I used to get hit on the other rock. Was it? Yeah, it's brilliant fun, and I can't believe it after all these years, you know, the same people keep coming up trying to borrow money from me. Especially this fella here. And I can't believe it, you know, doing these competitions, it's fantastic fun. Get to sit up here and talk about ourselves. And hold on to the mic before, you know, I turn the time.
Thank you. And I'm Diane, and I was Jet on the Gladiators. And it's lovely to be here. I would imagine some of you got some questions. So I'll hand back to the question master himself. I was on the show for 4.5 years, and then I had an accident. Like most of us, broken and carted off.
Was that the same series? I don't think it was just after, right?
My accident was just after yours as well. Sharon Pyramid?
Pyramid, yeah.
My favourite event.
We got the same, we were actually together when I took my knee. You and I were on.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it was just carnage. Anyway, let's go back to the beginning. There are lots of high points too. Here we go.
On that really high note, I always like to start my interviews with just starting from the start. How on earth did you get to where you are now? Where did it all begin? What was the first kind of spark that you were like, this is what I love doing? What on earth made you think, I don't like a 9 to 5, I want to be a gladiator for a living, or, you know, a Olympian for a living, or anything like that? What was the thing that drove you to begin with?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different for me because obviously I came from the sports area. So, as was mentioned, I was at the Olympic Games at 13, so I don't really remember doing anything else other than my sport. I was training for swimming from about 8. Started off like loads of kids, did horse riding and ballet and swimming and school sport, and then I was just made to swim. I'm just the right shape. And a swimmer is fairly tall, they have a long body, long arms, big hands and big feet. So really, really unattractive that sounds, but actually that works as a swimmer. So if you look at Michael Phelps, that's exactly his dimensions as well. So, you know, we have to have a big wingspan and big paddles. That's what it's all about. And I found the thing that I could do, and then went on and won my silver medal in 1980. Then left the sport for a while, went to University of America, TV, bits and pieces, then came back and competed in 92. So the last Olympics that I was in was 92, but the last one that I was at was this summer in Tokyo working for the BBC. So yeah, and they're all different, absolutely amazing. And then because of that, I got the opportunity to be involved with these guys, and as previously mentioned, Derek was working on the show, so I was around it quite a lot, and they were such great fun to be with. And really hard work, because the shows are hard work to do, because it's a lot standing about, long days, and you are constantly injured, so you're living off Nurofen all the time. And I kept saying no to Nigel, and then eventually I said yes, because they just looked as if they were having such great fun. And then actually ended up snapping my cruise shot on Pyramid. A lovely policewoman fell on my leg sideways and snapped what was left of it, really. And if I'm honest, I think I'd injured it as a kid somewhere, but I got away with it because I was a swimmer, I was non-weight bearing and I was in the water. If I'd been a rugby player or a hockey player or something, it probably would have had problems before. But so what was left of the cruise ship got wrecked in Gladiators.
I was really starstruck when she turned. Sharon Davis.
So he was our joker. He was the one that always used to make us laugh all the time.
I still am a little bit.
Yeah.
So I remember watching her on the Olympics.
Wow.
Didn't have a crush at all. It's true, I was proper starstruck. So I didn't let it show. Yeah. I bugged in to be a contestant, and I sent in a photograph on the beach with a big ice cream knife. Literally, for some reason, they phoned me up for an interview. What's wrong with these people? And they took me on as a reserve, me and Lightning. And got there, they said how incredible I was and wonderful cancer and everything else in my mind. And they signed me up for the rest of the series and just turned up every year. Mostly without their permission, I just kept turning up in the costume and making everyone get rid of me.
Oh, very well. It was lovely though, you were always the joker as well as the group, and just cheering us
I'm
on.
wearing a costume with a little snake on it, you know. It's a little difficult to take it seriously until you get really hurt and you think, oh, I better take this seriously.
With snake hips, he still couldn't wriggle out of the injuries. None of us could. Always got broken fingers at some point because things like hanked up. But dual, remember the ones that were the hitting one? It was just kind of, if you got hit on your fingers, no matter how much personal protection, it was hanging, you just got your fingers ripped apart or something. Or the worst thing was the high falls, because usually if you've got a body across you, something's going to give. And it's not going to be the crash mat, it's going to be your joints. So some ligament or a bone will go. But outside of all the accidents, it was fun, the camaraderie, because we knew how pressurised it was. None of us wanted to look bad in our little bit of lycra, couldn't hide anywhere. And the producers would say, oh, it doesn't matter if your gladiator loses, but if you were starting to lose consistently, you'd be hauled in and questioned by the bosses. So, but it was good fun.
I was always being questioned. I just did enough to get by each year. It was always, I didn't practice enough. But I stayed there for a long time. So I must have hit it right.
His gladiator school report must try harder. I used to often say to you, I don't know how I'm doing this, I don't know how I'm doing this, but you were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I was asked, I'd done TV before Glads, and I'd been a dancer, a gymnast in the GB squad as a child. And I think some of the skills I kept, and I kept some of my fitness because I was teaching in fitness, and that's how I got asked to go on the show. And I had no idea I'd be good enough to be a gladiator. I thought I wanted to be a contender. And even then, well, I don't know about you guys, but I think the contenders were the most fearsome thing in the arena, because they had to do everything, including face us, as their biggest barriers to success. So for me, someone like Eunice was like the ultimate thing in the gladiator arena, because they had nowhere to hide. They had minimal training on the events, which were really hard. So yeah, I was in awe of it, but I was also glad when it stopped for me, I must admit.
So I was going to ask, like, how competitive was it in there? Was there kind of a kind of pecking order of, oh, this person's at the top? I know I spoke to Saracen, and he was very much, well, I was the best at this, I was definitely the best at this. And then I'd go off and save lives of firefight and all of that, and just like, oh, okay, so I guess that. So I'd love to say if that was actually the story, or if that was just him saying, like, he wanted to be the best at everything.
But Diane was spot on. We didn't get much time to train. They were more interested really in making sure we had the skimpiest outfit and the flickiest hair. So we spent way more time in makeup and outfit than we did on kit. And for me, that was the hardest thing to deal with. So coming at it from an Olympian, I just wanted time to train on the equipment. So I used to get my knickers in a twist when we weren't allowed to train because they were doing the lighting or something. And I remember doing the tug of war one live on the show, having never even done it ever before. It was like, just get out there and do it. And so that was really difficult. And the first time I did Atmospheres, again for me it was about winning. So I put this girl in the corner and I just made her stay there because I was bigger and stronger than she was. And afterwards Nigel gave me such a bollocking because he just said, push her around the arena, it's entertainment, Sharon. So I was coming from a sporting background where all I wanted to do was win. And I didn't really care how I won, as long as it was fair, but I just needed to win. Whereas of course it is an entertainment show, so we were expected to do it with lots of flair. And Pyramid was probably one of the worst because we were literally told we had to constantly throw ourselves off, so that we had these great tumbles and these great falls, rather than just pushing contenders down, which we could have done that, but it doesn't make such great television. And the problem was when you fell with two of you, that was when you tended to get injured. So there was this, for me, there was definitely a conflict between wanting to be an athlete and win it, and wanting to entertain. And this guy was just an absolute entertainer, and I'm like, I don't care how boring I look as long as I win. So,
I won't bother with that, it won't be a bit. I didn't feel competitive against the others, or the other lads. I think a few of them, especially Huntley's competitive about everything. You know, you play ticky rings with people who want to beat them, and cheap to do it. No, I never felt good. I just wanted to live another year, you know, because I used to have so much fun backstage and listening to people and laugh. Really, actually enjoyed it because I knew TV's a fickle thing anyway. And there's so many people trying to get on that show, I knew that it could go like that. There was a time when I was up for the book, a few times probably. I just really enjoyed it. I was away before my kids. Shut up! Thank you. Anyway, sorry. Any questions? I've got you on.
Hello. Any questions actually from you guys? It was competitive. It was just, you just were monitored all the time, really. But again, like Sharon said, wanting to win, but also making it entertaining. So there's a fine line between kind of going, oh, I'm going to win this. Does it look good? But yeah. And the events were only kind of ever a minute or 30 seconds, so you had very little time in the scheme of things to prove yourself. But I was wondering if anyone else has got any questions as well in the audience.
This is what happens when you have a damn presenter up on here being interviewed. She decides that not only, by the way, answer 2 of the questions I was going to ask in one question, then turns around and goes, is there any questions from the audience, please?
Yes. Do you think a show like Gladiators could actually be done again, like if you filmed it again this year?
It wouldn't get past health and safety now, sadly. So there's not a chance in hell that TV would be able to do it now. So what's that show that they recorded in Argentina? Total Wipeout. So Total Wipeout had to be filmed abroad because it would not pass health and safety in this country. So sadly, that will never happen. Yeah. Not sure I'm up for signing away my life. But I'm sure there would be people that would.
So that's a no to Gladiators.
The Americans are apparently being commissioned to redo it. So it won't be the original cast, I'd have not thought, unless they're in on a presenter type role or training role. And again, their health and safety just must be very different. But you know, ITV could think out of the box and go, right, we'll just ship the whole thing off to Argentina, because obviously it'd be different now. But I wouldn't be up for it, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Different formats, didn't they? They tried the ice one, and then they brought it back on Sky a few years later.
Oh yeah, and water, yeah.
And I don't know, I don't think it's a secret, I know you think it's a secret, but Netflix are doing documentary. So they're doing a big one in America, and then they've also asked a few of us if we were doing one in the UK as well. So that'll be something to look forward to. What's everybody doing?
I heard about the documentary, and I was just kind of hoping it was like Tiger King Dish the Day, kind of thing. Everyone wants to know the secret side of it, let's be honest. Don't have enough press, don't worry. I dread to think. So, your like big star standout moment, I mean, actually no, I'll take it back, because we jumped about 5 questions, thank you again. When you said it was kind of your lives, obviously, I mean, you've got the Olympics, you're used to it, like anything like that taking over your life, and you just wanted to train and have your fun. How much did the season actually take over your life? How much was it just, you know, eat, drink, sleep, gladiators for however long? Or was it kind of, you know, one day's work per week, which I'm sure it wasn't?
We used to film 2 or 3 shows a day, 3 shows when we was doing children's gladiators thing. But we also, for 4 years running, we did live shows at Wembley. So I was always training, I always put in the hours training wise, so it was fit as possible. Because you're injured, you know, when you're not really fully fit. And that wise, it was year round. Panto was obviously the most grueling thing that we did, especially when you're doing, you know, dying. We did Panto in Darlington, and we had a fight scene we choreographed where we were spinning 2 bugle sticks. And one night, is it mine you whacked or I whacked yours? And it just broke in half. Then another night, I'm spinning his finger and he went straight on the top of the drum, which is really bad because it's fantastic for me because every night I went to pretend to drop it, drops it. Miss you, mate. I went off on a tangent there. Me, man, little bit. Anyone else got any questions? Us.
I got one. I've got a very good question. How long when you start to warm up before you start the show?
Oh. Well, that was one of the problems actually, because you warm up, then there's a delay, and you get cold. And you warm up, then all of a sudden you might be cold again. The problem is that calling you on, quick, you go on. And that's often when the accident happens, when you're not properly warmed up.
That is a really good question as well, only because not only the difference between you prepping, being trained pre the show for the events, being in good fitness, feeling mentally good, the stress levels, because of all the sitting and waiting. Has anybody heard of a part of a lot of athletes, something called peak performance? And it's when your adrenaline, it's hormones or everything, it's when your adrenaline is just perfectly set for you to get that best bit out of you. Was it the hand of God that the wonderful the triple jumper, Jonathan Edwards, talked about that? He just was in his peak performance when I think he superseded his PB and got a world, best or something on the triple jump. And he said it was just one of when everything just comes together in that moment. And it's hard on lads because you couldn't sort of train your body to be in peak performance after sitting around for about 7 hours and you've got 30 seconds to prove yourself. That's how I found it hard. And I think they took some tests with the girls in season 2 of our white blood cell count, which apparently signifies cortisol and stress levels. And it was through the roof on all of us because of the sitting and waiting more than anything. And watching the injuries happen, which made us all slightly nervous to get out there and compete. And they got worse each year as the contenders got harder, faster, stronger, more bloodthirsty to win. And just the carnage level started to go up and up, didn't it?
See, talking of the contenders getting harder and things like that, I swear, I don't know if it was a childhood thing, but there was kind of a difference between, that's a very simple word, between the gladiators who seemed like the 7 foot tall, 3 foot wide, and then you had the contenders who were definitely looked like they were at the disadvantage, or I always remember them looking like they were at the disadvantage. And then they made the Sky series, where it seemed like the contenders they were bringing in were just probably working at the same gyms as the gladiators that they got. Do you think that that's kind of a difference that's like just come through in time? Do you think that's kind of...
I think that what you had was that a lot of the guys were from a bodybuilding background, so they were a lot bigger than the contenders, whereas a lot of us girls were the same size because we come from a sport background. So, I think Judy was probably the tallest, wasn't she? Yeah, maybe, and maybe sort of slightly later on. Rio was very tall as well. But the rest of us were, fairly normal size, really. And we had a couple of bodybuilders, Bernie and Helen, didn't we? But the rest of us were sort of from a sports background or a gymnastics background or a dance background, so therefore we didn't have the same sort of difference in actual body weight as the guys did. The likes of Warrior, what was Warrior? He was huge, wasn't he?
19 and a half stone.
But not just in size, obviously you guys practice the games and that, but there was always that kind of, men and women could see the contenders were at a disadvantage. Everything they were doing, it seemed like...
Not when they get 10 second head start.
Well, but you know what I mean, that's why they needed that, and things like that.
Well, the worst one was the one when they had to go against the three of us, I always felt. Powerball was tough, but the one when they actually went down the gauntlet. Yeah, and there was 3 of us, do you remember that? We had the big pads, and I always think that was probably the toughest, actually, for the contenders, having the 3 of us lined up, and they had to get through us, and yeah, I always felt quite sorry for them on that one, if I'm honest with you.
It used to go through my head, who would watch a show like Gladiators and go, sign me up, I want to face them. What the no!
I'm going to be honest, if Gladiators was still on today, I'd be a much fitter person. Because when I was a kid, Yeah, when I was a kid, I was a rugby player. And I was desperate for it. I was that kind of, I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm going to go and beat the Gladiators.
We had a lot of combat sport. You know, a lot of people in karate and
because of the contact. Often we'd have some athletes that take a knock in the rugby game, powerball, or on the pugil stick, and they take all the life out of them. And most, if not every contestant I ever asked, or even said voluntarily, this is the toughest thing I've ever did. And a lot of them wasn't expecting to be competing at 12 o'clock at night in front of 10,000 people. And that takes a lot of people's confidence away when they're not used to being in front of the camera, especially back in the day. Like back in the day, you used to have a camera with a film. You take a photo and you take the film out of the camera and you take it to the chemist and you have to wait for it. It's like a big deal to be in front of the camera. So a lot of people used to lose a lot of confidence, and they would see an hour's edited version on a Saturday, and obviously it looks a lot easier. And when they got there, they had a big shock, mostly. And now a song.
Who came up with the names for your characters? Did you get to choose them yourselves?
I don't know how these guys got their name. Tell the story of how we got our name.
Well, I was told that Bob Monkhouse. This is I was told this a little while ago. It's not a joke. Bob Monkhouse mentioned this name from somewhere to Nigel Lithgow. I think it's Paul Noddings or someone said about this. Really, Bob? But there was an American gladiator called Cobra, and that's where I presume it come from, but I might be wrong. Made up if it was.
Mine simply was because I was very quick. The tryouts for us, I was at the first tryouts, and we did the Army Assault Course at Woolwich Barracks, which is a big, long assault course. But I was really quick, so I kept all my gymnastic skills. When you show a gymnast an assault course, it's like just training doing an evening of gymnastics. I threw myself at it, and I was quick at it. I mean, I couldn't do it now, but yeah, that's why I was called Jet. I think apparently.
I was desperate to be Ice. But they said, no, there's an American called Ice already, so I couldn't have it. So, because I just thought that would be a perfect one for me to have, but it gone. So then we had to come up with Amazon. So it was a little bit of a conversation between me and LWT and all the rest of it, and then Amazon was Female Warrior and Tall, and that seemed like a kind of good one. The only thing I am so upset about now is that I didn't patent that word. Because if I had, I'd have been aloft, wouldn't I? All the way to the bank, all these years later.
Right, I only have one more question because we are running a little bit out of time, and then I will put it out to everyone else. And it is a very cheesy question. I'm very sorry, but I have to ask it. Games. I mean, I always wanted to play as a contestant in Danger Zone because I wanted to be shot at. That seemed like an amazing game. Favourite and least favourite game, but you're not allowed to use the word injuries.
I like Powerball because I liked it when we were together. It was a great fun for us as gladiators. We enjoyed that game. There's a certain amount of endurance, which again for me, coming from the athletics background, I liked the endurance side of it because I always got given like the hitty games, and I didn't because I was tall. And weirdly, I liked Skytrack, and I never once got it. And yet in trials, when we were training for it, I was really quite quick because again I could use my endurance. But because of my height, I always got put on the hitty things, and I must admit I didn't enjoy those as much. So that's just the way it is, isn't it? I mean, we didn't really get to pick. We kind of got told by who was our ref? John Anderson, yeah, Mr. 321. So he had quite a lot to say where we went to.
Sorry, it was John Anderson who decided for Gladiators.
Yeah, along with Nigel, but a lot of John Anderson.
I liked Pyramid, but it was that dangerous they pulled in from the last 2 or 3 years of the show because of so many injuries. And there's another game where we had this huge, what was it? Well, thank you very much. There was a game where there was 2 gladiators either side of the contestant and they run across the bridge. That was fun. I was going off and staying and swimming across and getting told off a lot. I used to enjoy that.
Didn't like the arm ones, because that was really hurt.
Oh yeah.
That was hard. You could pull each other out of the circle. And then you just grew your arm like that. So very much really.
Yeah, actually I didn't like the big ball thing, or a pendulum. I used to be scared of heights, and to the top of that's about 60 foot. And you got a trapeze net thing, and so you see right to the floor, and it's a long way from 60 foot to there. I didn't think much of that. We had pole axe actually. In the beginning, there was a 10-foot airbag. It was 40 foot high, and 30 foot don't sound a lot, but if you fell just a little bit to the one side, it's like someone hitting with a baseball bat. Coming where I come from, we hit loads of baseball bats. Just go and swim. And exactly, I think rock brothers used to walk around with sticks in their mouths. I think that's why they had all this self-defense. I'm off. Can't get this talking rubbish now.
Hold up.
Swing ball was fun. One that we were on the big bungee cord.
Oh, swing shot, yeah. I never got to do that one. Hang tough on the wall for me, because when we first got together, John Anderson, there was, I don't know if you knew, but beneath the arena, and this makes me think of the original Gladiator arenas, I don't know, because they hold the gladiators and the animals beneath the arenas in Rome. I don't know if you knew that. They were like dungeons. It was awful. But actually beneath the arena in the NIA, we rigged up Hang Tough. We rigged up a few of the events before they got rigged up in the arena, because that cost a lot of money and time. So we could actually practice down in the bowels of the arena. And I think the first thing John Anderson did with all of us was, let's put them through some volleyball. With the high nets. And the first thing I did was I did a lunge to volley. I went over on my left ankle and I popped a ligament. So I'm hopping around. Then they put me on Hang Tough down on the bottom rig to see if I couldn't hang on. So I couldn't do anything. So the first few days of training as a gladiator in year one, I was sat downstairs going, I can't do a thing. But it's why I became good at Hang Tough at the wall eventually, because I couldn't weight bear on my foot because of the ankle. And the other weird thing that we got to know about what events we'd be on is late at night in the hotel. It's not going anywhere dark, don't worry. There'd be a slip of paper, do you remember? Just slid under your door, and you'd be like, the paper of doom. And you just knew from the darkness of the room, on that sealed your fate for the next day. You knew on it would be a grid of what gladiator was on what event. So walk over to the door, go, please, 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 not be this, please, not be that. So yeah, we didn't have much say. What they tried to do is, once they realised some of the glads were stronger at some of the events, they'd save the stronger glads for later on in the series, so more towards the semi-finals and finals, so the contenders, had a better chance, I think, against some of us, because they got such little exposure to training on the events, whereas over the years we had a bit more familiarity, but still not a great deal. It was fly by the seat of your pants, wasn't it? An improvised show is going on in an event I didn't know that thing had never done, ever, in front of 9 million people. Brilliant. Love it.
So, any questions, guys? As hands you up, that's what I like. See, you were closest.
Hello, if you all come from like physical background, what were your heroes growing up?
So I think as Olympians, if you ask any of my friends Olympian friends, so the Daley Thompsons and I forgot actually, I presented the kids series Train to Win with Daley Thompson, I forgot all about that, but that's how I've also got involved with it. We all have a bit of a eureka moment. It's usually watching an Olympic Games. So for me, it was watching Mark Spitz with his 7 Olympic gold medals and his handlebar moustache, and mine was like 8, I think, at the time. So I think we all have one of those moments, eureka moments, if you were to ask Olympians, and they go, I want to do that. So that's
Mine was Albert Einstein. He was a bloke owned a fish shop down the road, not the famous physicist. Bruce Lee, and there was a guy called John Erickson, who was a fantastic athlete, who was in the show for a little while, who accidentally killed himself on a TV set with a blank top diver, he could play classical piano, he could do that kind of music. And I wanted to emulate him. He was 6 foot 1, so I knew he could get on a stretcher. And he was in a show called Making of a Male Model where everyone fancied him. And he was like this super cool guy. I still follow his fan site now, 35 years later.
Olga Corbett and Nadia Comaneci was a gymnast, yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes.
When you did the sort of the, I guess, crossover episodes with the international gladiators, was there much of a sort of a culture clash in the way you trained and the way you performed, or did you find that you gelled quite easily?
You're looking concerned.
Well, I can't really answer that question as well as these guys because I didn't do that many of the internationals because I got injured just before they were doing the recording of it. What was really fascinating was that when I was in Tokyo this year, the Americans had put out a sprinter for the 50 metres freestyle whose mum was an American gladiator. Yeah, so Slame or one of the early ones, but she did compete for Britain and then she went for us and then she stopped and she went elsewhere, but yeah. And that was I just felt that was really interesting that we've done this massive circle. He didn't realise it, so I got this really exclusive interview because I went, I know your mum! And that was it. He came over and spoke to me.
No, just a lot of new friends for me. I'm still in contact with John Saru, like Vulcan. I still email and text messages, group ones mostly. Taking each other off. So it's loads of new friends. Brilliant. It's just more fun, more parties.
And for me, I'd seen the American show before the British show, and I just was in awe of them, to be honest. And I think when we all finally did unite in the arena, and to this day I feel it, just because it's such a rarefied thing to do. It's like in an interview I can occasionally say, when I gladiated, who says that? You know, I was a milkwoman, I was a teacher, when I gladiated. So there's a very small population of people who did that show across the planet. So whenever I met somebody else from one of the other international series, I just felt a kind of a sense of, you just know how interesting and difficult it was actually at times to be out there. But it was a privilege to do. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, by the way? I can only take a couple more. I believe you had one.
You beat me to it.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Last question then.
With the evolution of the games and things as you guys were in the show for many years, and the new games that came along, how much of a say did you have in any of the evolutions or any of the new games and how you would actually style them out or anything?
Oh, I just love the fact you think you had any say whatsoever.
None.
No, seriously, we had absolutely no say whatsoever on any of it. And we got no say on what games we did, we got no say on what games they came up with. It was always at the beginning of a season quite daunting because they would bring out new pieces of equipment. So it was, super new to us when they would bring out this ridiculous globe that hung from the ceiling that we were then expected to hang all the way around. So it was it was kind of like that was the moment we'd go, oh my god, what do they want us to do?
Yeah. You got to do what?
Do you know what else as well? I didn't think they thought through some of them. They just go, we'll make this up as we go along. It's just cost us $2 million to put this in the arena, but the gladiators will make it look good. And do you know who they would put up on each of the events before we had to have a go? Once they realised what we needed to do, it was the riggers and the crew.
They were brilliant.
Brilliant. Oh, you just go and have a go at that. What, a 10-second start? That'll be good.
And they got competitive amongst themselves, the crew. They did. They used to chase each other up the wall and do and practice the games. You would do, wouldn't you? Most of them was quite young fellas as well. Yeah, actually, I'm glad we didn't have to take some of them on.
Right, well, thank you very much, guys. It has been truly enlightening to a special part of my childhood. I'm sure many of the childhoods out there. So all I can say is thank you very much for being truly amazing. And please give a massive round of applause to the